Welcome back to the Matt Borka Show, and today we're going to talk about the decline of Western pop culture. Here's the thing. I grew up watching franchises like Harry Potter, Lord of the Rings, Star Wars, and those franchises really defined my childhood. And as I'm trudging along in my early 30s and trying to find things to do when I'm actually not working, it has become increasingly difficult to find things that are actually enjoyable outside of work. I used to read a lot. I used to, uh, you know, interact with a lot of these franchises, and what I found in the past couple of years specifically, I started going back to rereading and rewatching and re-engaging with all the things I used to enjoy when I was a kid. It's not because I don't want to watch other things. I really enjoyed the Hunger Games franchise when it came out in the 2010s, right? However, when you're looking at what's happening nowadays, it's literally just an endless wave of reruns and sequels. And let's be honest, they're trash. So, what I want to do is try to understand why this is all happening and actually why the East has been doing significantly better compared to the West. So, let's dive into some numbers. But before we do that, I just wanted to give you guys a bit of a bit more context here. So I grew up in the West. I spent 22 years of my life in Hungary, and then after that, I moved to Scotland, and I lived there for 5 years. And I've been in Thailand for the past 5 years. So I've been here and there. I had plenty of time to interact and consume Western pop culture over the years, and ever since I moved to Thailand, I started to notice that things are more and more shifting in a position where actually there's a lot more to choose from uh, Eastern stuff, right? Whether we're talking about games or music, and it's really becoming prevalent. So I just wanted to give you guys some context here. I'm not making this video off the cuff, just crapping on one or the other, or not having enough context to speak about either side. Okay, cool. So let's dive in. So, in terms of, I feel a golden era for me specifically as a millennial in his early 30s, I grew up uh, watching Harry Potter and Lord of the Rings and even Disney movies like, I don't know, Lilo and Stitch, or things of that nature. Okay, so let's talk about the some of the historical context here regarding the West's cultural dominance in the late 90s and early 2000s, the time when I was a kid, right? So I just wanted to talk and reference some box office data for some of the franchises I mentioned. So Harry Potter brought in 7.7 billion box office worldwide, plus an additional 25 billion total franchise value. Then Lord of the Rings, 2.9 billion worldwide, and that was just off of a $281 million production budget. And then the original Star Wars trilogy, adjusted for inflation, brought in 6.4 billion. Okay, versus the 4.4 billion for the Disney sequels. When you really truly think about it, the cultural impact of these franchises, they were everywhere, and they were translated into so many languages as well. So, for example, Harry Potter got translated into 85 different languages. So, talk about global cultural penetration. These stories are were so sticky and original and different that a lot of us were actually, I'm quite grateful for growing up when I grew up in the early 2000s, late 90s, because at that time there were all these amazing movies coming out and becoming, quite frankly, cultural phenomenon, and they really had a lasting impact on a lot of us. I personally started reading a lot because of Harry Potter, because I was a massive fan of Harry Potter, and I to this day I read a lot, and that's thanks to Harry Potter. So just from a personal standpoint, the franchise had a really lasting impact on me personally, right? And I'm sure I can speak of, on behalf of other people as well. I had tons of friends who enjoyed reading Harry Potter, and it really shaped the way we look at the world. And I personally think that it had an impact on, my values, as an adult, and how I view the world and interact with the world. Now, I feel what happened over the course of the past couple of years, there were all these amazing franchises coming out, or stories, or original themes and worlds coming out. And I do feel that the dystopian, young adult era of the 2010s also had a major impact, although I don't have exact data on how those movies performed or books performed. But I do feel that that era was kind of a second wave, right? And yeah, but essentially probably after the 2010s, the Marvel movies were incredibly successful, right? They had, so much success, but I feel ever since, let's say, Endgame, the last Avengers movie, right? Everything has been declining, and it has nothing to do with the Marvel franchise only. We also have to talk about other franchises as well, right? Because it's not like, well, it's only them. No, I think it's everyone, right? And I think people ran out of ideas, right? I think there wasn't enough original material left for them to be able to really do something meaningful and original. And also, if you really think about it, when we're thinking about all these franchises, they all had some type of a source material. I think it was only really, let's say, an Indiana Jones or, Star Wars, that where they were not basing the movies on, uh, books or something that was already written down, right? So so that was a rarity even at that point, right? And again, I'm not trying to disparage like anything that was done in the 80s and 90s. I'm just trying to, make a sense of like what happened since the late 90s and early 2000s. And we can talk about the Matrix, right? Like these are all, and I just chose like these three franchises because, these were the ones I interacted, with the most. So I'm trying to make it a little bit more anecdotal as well for you guys. So yeah, a lot has changed. A lot has, um, changed, and because of that, I feel we're in a very different spot, right? Now, let's have a look at some data on the Western culture's decline, right? And, yeah, I have some figures here. So in 2024, all top 10 films were sequels slash remakes versus 2000, when 8 out of 10 were actually originals. And then 24% of, uh, box office drop in 2024 mid-year versus 2023. Now, there's also some figures here about production costs, right? Normal blockbusters now cost like $100 million, some reaching 447, right? And the last one in five moviegoers vanished since the pandemic and haven't returned. Now, there's a lot for us to kind of, digest here, right? So, to my previous point, let's be honest, Hollywood ran out of original material, and that there were telling signs of that even back in the day, right? Just think about Pirates of the Caribbean. Think about all these franchises. Like once something was successful and there was any sign of success, they started to squeeze it, as much as it was possible in order to maximize revenue. But there's a couple of other things here, and I'm going to talk about them in a second. It has become extremely difficult for Hollywood to come up with original material because there's obviously higher cost involved, so that's not very good, right? But because of the higher cost, the risk of producing something original has significantly increased because back in the day, like let's say 20 years ago or something, right? Production cost was significantly less. Yeah, they still have to have some sort of evidence that, hey, maybe is this going to perform, right? Like we're not talking about indie movies here, but I feel studios were more inclined to take risks. But then there's a couple of other things here as well. I'm going to have to make another video about it at some point. But people are reading less, right? So back in the day, the way, let's say, a Harry Potter or let's say Lord of the Rings became successful, they already had data on how many people read the books and how popular the franchise was even before they started working on any type of material for movies or games or anything, right? Because let's not forget that these movies also brought revenue in terms of video games, right? And toys and a lot of other things like trading cards, like you name it, right? So if you really truly think about it, there's this huge issue here with cost and risk, right? Because there's no data. Let's say people nowadays want to work on some original materials. Well, what do? For example, Hollywood hasn't made Dune movies. Okay, well, Dune has been a fairly popular franchise. Sure, not as popular as Lord of the Rings or Star Wars or Harry Potter, but there's some data on whether or not the books were successful, and because of that, the people who produced Dune, they had more evidence of the movie doing well, and actually it did really well, right? So there's so many factors here. Things are changing so rapidly, and it's actually like a couple of other things as well. Because again, people read less. When people read less, what happens? Well, how can we gather any sort of data whether something's going to work? Well, okay, cool. So we cannot gather the data necessary to make the necessary decisions. So we are going to squeeze whatever worked before. And unfortunately, Hollywood has been in this mode for quite some time now. And you can really see, for example, 24% box office drop in 2024, right? Like that's one number there. But then also there's fewer people watching movies because people choose streaming instead. Going to the cinema or the movie theater became more expensive. So there's all these other factors as well that going to the movies, it's not like really that big of a thing anymore, right? So they're also losing their audience as well on top of everything else. So it's quite challenging. But we also have to talk about a couple of other things here, right? Because it's not like, like that's it. Well, we also have to talk about the gaming industry, right? Because actually, I feel there's a massive shift happening right now. I feel a lot of the good writers are being sucked into the gaming industry because, well, there's a lot of reasons for that, but the gaming industry is booming. Actually, I have some figures here. So annually, the gaming industry brings in 187 to 282 billion annually, whereas the movie industry, 73 to 93 billion, 3-to-1 advantage, right? So that's huge. Things are shifting. There are more gamers now. 90% of Gen Z identify as gamers, right? And I feel maybe millennials are a little bit split, right? But I definitely identify as a gamer. I've been playing video games all my life, and when you're looking at a like Horizon Zero Dawn and Horizon Forbidden West, yeah, sure, people poo-pooed on the games themselves a little bit, especially the second one. But if you truly think about it from a storytelling perspective, I fairly enjoyed it, and I felt that the story or the stories of the two games were quite similar to how, let's say, I don't know, like a Harry Potter what is structured, a book from the series, or the Hunger Games, right? And I was actually thinking about this quite a bit, and then all of a sudden, Expedition 33 came out, and it was a massive success. They innovated a lot of things. They produced original music, and it really showed the world that, hey, actually, the West is not dead yet, but the people who are in charge and people who are in charge of, Hollywood and the film industry, they have way too much control, and they're trying to make money, but clearly things are shifting quite fast, and because of that, it's very difficult for them to even decide how to make money. That's my take. All right, let's see what else we have here. Okay, so yeah, we talked about how you know there's studios have become extremely risk averse because they don't know how they're going to make their money, right? Like, it's very difficult for them to gather data, right? And also, again, talent is flocking to the gaming industry. I mean, just have a look at the writer behind Claire Obscure Expedition 33. That's the full name of the game, the French one I was talking about. It was done by Sandfall Interactive, a small French studio, and this person never worked in the industry, but for the past 5 years, she was working with this studio, and the game did extremely well. Why? Because it was the decision to hire her was based on um, meritocracy and not necessarily who knows who, which is very prevalent nowadays in Hollywood, right? Like, there's tons of nepotism and cronyism going on, and because of that, there's that has an impact on what's being produced. Because a lot of times, let's be honest, the end product, especially in the past, let's say 5 years, it's been pretty shit, right? We have to admit. And what else do we have here? So I do feel that uh, there's a disconnect between what people want to see and what's being produced, right? Because these studios are working based on the assumption of, well, if they liked this franchise before, well, let's just make another movie and let's hope they like it again. But at the same time, people are interested in exploring new franchises. Again, I know I'm going back to the Hunger Games because I'm currently rereading all the books. I feel, you know, there were so many things different about that era, right? The Maze Runner, Divergent, and the Hunger Games, right? They were obviously, from a story perspective, there was nothing, magical about the stories, right? They were all taking, they were more like sci-fi's, right, in a lot of sense, and also they were very critical of society. So again, very different stories, but for a person who likes Harry Potter, a person who likes Star Wars, Lord of the Rings, it was perfect, right? It totally made sense. I devoured all the books at the time. I really enjoyed the story and the characters, right? And then when the movies came out, well, absolutely, I watched all of them because I was invested, and I wanted to see what the fuss is about, right? So yeah, it's fascinating that nowadays, like, there's nothing being produced, and there's actually some books out there that are trying. I think what's her name, Rebecca Yarros. I haven't read the books. I cannot really comment on how good they are. Apparently, they are very popular. If you go to Audible, you see, they're very popular. So yeah, things are changing and shifting, and it's quite difficult to make sense of what's going on. And I say that the studios feel the same way, just purely based on what the numbers are showing as well. And then here's the other thing: the industry is declining. Like there's evidence of that, right? That things are declining for the movie industry, and and yeah, sure, maybe there are enough people talking about it, but the gaming industry is growing and it's soaking up the people who enjoy these stories, right? And and again, like you can get a lot more out of the game because the stories can be told uh, for. I mean, it's almost like a TV show, right? It's a combination of a lot of things. All right. And now that we are done with talking about the West, we also have to talk about the rise of the East because I feel as the West has been declining, there's been some major wins from Eastern developers in Eastern studios and Eastern companies, right? And I want to talk about some of the data I have here prepared, and how some of these companies are having an impact on what we're consuming and how we're kind of interacting with the world. Because let's be honest here, these franchises have a sort of soft power impact on the world, right? When Harry Potter when Harry Potter is being translated into 85 languages, and culture is being spread around the world, right? And obviously, sure, there's no political motivation there, but from a cultural standpoint, it does matter. It does matter a lot, right? Because no matter, I know that there's no real intentions like that behind, releasing movies and whatever, right? Like that's not the reason why George Lucas actually did that. Plus, he actually took a lot of uh, things from Eastern culture, right? Like Buddhism, whatever, and that is an integral part of the Jedi religion and some of the aspects of Star Wars, right? So there's always been a bit of back and forth between the West and the East, right? But we do have to talk about the rise of the East, right? Because right now uh, the way I'm looking at it, things are looking significantly better for the East. And yeah, let's talk about some of the companies that have been doing well from a and the companies that have been kind of spreading that soft power that I was talking about. All right. So one of them is PopMart. So PopMart is a blind um, a blind box art toy company, right? And the idea is that they have different lines of products, right? Like Labubu or Skull Panda or other popular ones as well, like Harry Potter, Lord of the Rings, anime, Digimon, SpongeBob, you name it. If you're into pretty much like anything, they're going to have something for you, right? Whether it's a certain art style or just a franchise itself, right? So the reason why I feel it's worth talking about Pop Mart is they've actually done extremely well, right? They've seen 106% revenue growth. They've had $8 billion dollar top line revenue in 2024, okay, alone. But they've done extremely well, right? And the reason why I wanted to highlight them specifically is because, when I'm thinking about like big impact, right? I feel big impact is being translated into people standing in lines, right? So think about when Star Wars came out back in the day. There were so many people standing in lines and uh, waiting to watch the movie, right? The first one, it was huge. It was a massive phenomenon. Everyone wanted to see it, and that is what happened with iPhones as well, pretty much to this day. And I haven't really seen that sort of excitement around really anything in the past 10 years, right? Even more. And when you go to a Pop Mart and when there's a new release, right? And feel free to do your research because I don't want to dedicate this video to Pop Mart alone, right? But look into it. Like Labubu is massive. It's responsible for a significant portion of their sales, right? And who made it popular? Lisa, right? Lisa is one of the singers in Blackpink, right? She's a Thai national, and she's known worldwide. Like you've heard about her. But the point is, all these things, like they all kind of concentrate in the East, and they just started to spread to the West, right? There's more and more stores being opened in California and in Europe as well, right? So the point that I'm trying to make here is sure, can we completely compare a Pop Mart with Harry Potter and Lord of the Rings? No, but the impact this company had in terms of culture and in popularity. I mean, popularity. If you're, I mean, you haven't seen it, right? But when when Lisa posted an Instagram story of this Labubu, right? Like it's basically like a little monster, right? And she put it on her bag. And ever since then, Labubu just exploded. And it became this massive thing. There's like 3 lines now. The plastic toys have become extremely popular as well, because previously there were only plastic toys and now there's like plush ones as well. So yeah, it's really insane what one story managed to do and what impact it had on, I mean everywhere in the world. It's funny, I saw Krispy Kreme in the UK. So Krispy Kreme's British Instagram account, they posted there was a collab with Labubu. And I was like, wait, what was this? And that's when I started to realize, wait a second, there's like, it is happening. And I know that we're talking about a plush toy that you can put on your bag type thing, but this is important, right? Because the incarnation of Eastern pop culture will not necessarily translate into what we've seen in the West, right? It's going to be different. It's going to happen in different ways, right? But now I feel, instead of the West passing on in its soft power to the East, it's happening the other way around. And maybe it's happening slowly, but I do feel that it is happening. All right. So what else do we have here? So obviously there are some economic implications. There's obviously the decline in soft power, and that's probably like a whole different video, because the geopolitical implications of this are massive, really. And we have to also talk about how there's a drain, right? The best creators are leaving, right? And if they're lucky, they can find a company like Sandfall Interactive, right? We talked about Expedition 33, and then a couple of other things. So there is hope for the West, right? Like, it's not that, the West is done, but there is a decline. We have to admit it. There is a decline because, just with everything else, when the dominant power has been in power for a long time and things have been going well for him, and all of a sudden innovation kind of stopped. And then when innovation stops, and if it stops for too long, obviously that won't end well from an economic standpoint. And that's exactly what happened, right? And a couple other things. So when there's a Star Wars game coming out, when there's a Harry Potter game coming out, right? People are excited about it. Like, if you have a look at Hogwarts Legacy or the latest Jedi games, they did well. I don't exactly know like how well they did. Hogwarts Legacy did extremely well. I know that. they're currently Warner Brothers are working on the next installment because the game has done so well. But then if you have a look in previous years, like there was no Harry Potter game. Okay, the franchise is still very popular. Yes, but we do need new stuff, right? Like we do need new stories. We do need new worlds to dive into and enjoy. And that's not really happening right now. And the stories that are being told in very, very different ways. And it's a really a nuanced way to look at the whole situation. So yeah, that's pretty much it. So yeah, I know that that was kind of a mouthful, and it was kind of a different video, but I really wanted to make a video about this. And yeah, thank you so much for watching. Please, I'm always open to feedback. Feel free to let me know how you felt about this video in the comments below. Subscribe to this channel if you want to see more content about culture and business and what's happening in the world. And I'll see you soon.